Hey there friends, how's it going today? David Potts here with Song Notes, and I want to give you an interactive tour of FretMonster in this video. Now FretMonster is the web tool that's on the page that you're viewing. Now when I say interactive, I mean this is not just a web page that you load and you look at and you read, right? It's something that you're meant to interact with. You can use the different controls on the page to change what's displayed, to change the labels, to change, which frets are visible, which strings are visible. You can even change what instrument you're viewing. You can click on all the notes and hear how they would sound if you were to play them on your guitar. Okay, so it's truly interactive. A couple things I want to note before I get to the tour is number one, get the FretMonster handbook. It's available on this page. It's a free download. I want to sort of explain this to everybody, even if you're not a Song Notes member. And it gives you an overview of how the tool works and a bunch of handy links that will link to FretMonster in specific setups. That way you can sort of get going with some of the use cases that I outlined there, right? Another thing I want to note really quick is that there's no one way to use FretMonster. It's like a Swiss Army knife where there are tons of utilities that are going to be based on the context that you're in and the goals that you have. So that's a little bit of a blessing and a curse, right? The curse part of it is if you're totally new to it and lost, you will need to get sort of introduced. But once you get introduced, you know how it works. The sky's the limit, and that's the blessing of it. You can use it however you want. All right, so let's get into it and have some fun with this one, okay? So what FretMonster is, you see it on the screen right now. It shows you a horizontal layout of the fretboard. Now there are two things that you need to give it, and it will sort of default to these two things before you even start. That is a certain scale, and you need to give it a certain key as well. When I say key, I mean a certain note. And what we mean by that is, hey, in this case, we're looking at C major. Now, if I was to change to B major, or B flat major, or A major, as I change the key, the major scale is going to be displayed for that key, and all the notes in that major scale are going to be shown across the fretboard. So you kind of, again, have to bring to it a key you want to work in. G is a good one because G is one of those chords that we learned early on, and there's lots of cool stuff you can do. For example, I could switch to the pentatonic major scale, and I'm using my keyboard shortcuts to do this, but you can do this with your mouse as well, right? Click on scale. There's a bunch of different scales built in. Okay, and likewise for key, I could click on this and pick any of the 12 sort of notes. And we basically take the note as our starting point. We apply the scale formula based on that note, and we get those notes on the fretboard. This is doing it for you. You don't need to sort of bring your own sort of mental math to the fretboard that you're looking at here, okay? So say I was to look at the first 4 frets of the G major pentatonic, it would show me those notes. Now the G notes are highlighted. Those are the notes that are in yellow right now, but maybe I want to turn on triads, for example. Triads are the 1, 3, 5 in any given scale. Now in this particular key, that'll be the notes G, B, D, G, B, G, right? And hey, if I play all those notes at the same time, I get a G major chord, right? So that's kind of how it works here. We also can change the label to be scale degree. I find this incredibly helpful because scale degrees are consistent across all keys. And if you learn certain sort of scale degree riffs or melodies, they're gonna work in any key you're working with, right? So for G, right, you're gonna see that all those G, Bs, and Ds became 1, 3s, and 5s, right? So that's one thing we could do. I could sort of play the G chord and we can see how those notes that I play, where they fall on the fretboard. I also could play a little pentatonic run, right? And I was just playing the 1 to the 2 to the 3 to the 5 to the 6 to the 1. It's kind of slow when you click, but it's a helpful way to verify how things sound, right? Now I could move this position up the neck and go to a different G major scale shape. Now what you're viewing right here is what you might hear it called box 1, or you might hear this called the E-shaped cage form or whatever. But basically I'm playing the same notes. If we turn on note names here, you can see I'm also playing G, D, and B in a way that I can play as a chord, right? So that again is a G major scale. And I could play the same pentatonic run that I did down here. Okay, so in both cases I was playing the same thing. Now we can do this for other keys. Let me do a little shortcut to start over here. We could go to the key of C, for example. And I'm in the key of C. Let's go down to the first 4 frets only. If we were to play a C major chord, right, that's just the notes C, E, and G. They're all sort of evident on the sort of highlighted notes here. If I was to do scale degrees, we could see, know, that's me doing that same pentatonic run. So that's one place I do recommend maybe starting is pick a chord you know, right? A C major, a G major, an E major. Pick that as your key, and then pick either major or major pentatonic, and just play with the notes in the first 4 frets, right? The simple example I like to use is the song Wild World by Cat Stevens. You know, there's a part there, right? Hey, baby, baby, it's a wild world. He does a little scale run there. What he's doing is playing the C major scale. And it's hard to remember you like a child girl. So anyway, that's one of the cool things you can do. Now you could play a C major scale, a G major scale, any major scale, anywhere on the fretboard. I'm starting an open position here to keep it sort of handy for you. Now, before I get going to the next thing I want to show you, let me quickly plug, again, this FretMonster handbook. It's 5 pages. I made this with care over the last couple weeks. I really want you to all sort of get comfortable with this tool. One thing it does is it's going to link out to helpful little lessons that are going to help you along the way. For example, on page, I think it's 3 right here, at the bottom, I have a bunch of links and QR codes that you can learn things. For example, if you don't know how to read fretboard diagrams, which is what this is, I do have a course. Let me go to my courses real quick. Reading Music for Guitarists, right? You would want to load this course and you would want to go to right here, how to read fretboard diagrams. It talks about how to do this. Now again, these do not tell you which notes to play in order. They just outline all the available notes. The metaphor I like to use here, and this applies to FretMonster as well, is if you go to a friend's house and it's a lunch buffet for the Super Bowl or something like that, and you know, in their kitchen they might have a bunch of lettuce and cold cuts and tomatoes and meat, a sandwich bar, so to speak. If you've had sandwiches before, you would know what to do with that. If you said to them, hey, which order do I eat things in, they would look at you like you're kind of from another planet. My goal here is telling you, when you see all the notes like this is not telling you which notes to play in which order. It's for you to do whatever you want with, right? These are the building blocks you can use however you see fit. That's how it works when you read these things. Now, if you want to use tabs, and I talk about this in my Reading Music for Guitarists course, tabs will tell you exactly what to play in what order. Tabs are great for that, but tabs are not great when it comes to conveying a bunch of optional information here that we're going to look at with fretboard diagrams. So anyway, let's get back to this tour here. So another thing that FretMonster is helpful for is getting used to using scale degrees to refer to certain notes and to certain melodies that we play, right? Now, for example, what's on the screen right now is the A minor pentatonic. The notes are labeled with scale degrees. I could hit the letter N on my keyboard to change it to note names, right? A, C, D, E, G, and A are the notes in the A minor pentatonic. But if we go to scale degrees, it's going to give us the scale formula. 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7. Why I like using this is every single key, the minor pentatonic scale is going to use that exact same formula. And then what we can do is sort of play certain melodies, and if we refer to them as scale degrees. So for example, say I went from the 1 down to the flat 7, back to the 1, up to the flat 3, and back to the 1, right? That's me playing it in open position. Now I could move this scale somewhere else. I could go between frets 5 and 8, and I could play it with this 7th fret root note, right? Or I could go even a little bit higher to this little position up here. All I was playing in those 3 examples, I was in different parts of the fretboard, but I was always playing, going from the 1 to the flat 7, back to the 1, to the flat 3, and back to the 1, right? You could do this for any scale, and it's going to sound the same no matter where you play it. So that's a really handy thing about using the sort of FretMonster scale degrees. And also in my handbook here, I'll link out to these shapes. So you click a link in my PDF, it'll open this exact form for you, and you can try it out yourself, okay? Let me show you a whole nother example here. If I hit Shift-Z, that's going to reset things. If I want to play some triads, right? Triads are a way we can take any chord, like the A chord, right? Let me go to A. I'm going to just use the brackets there. And I want to do major arpeggio, actually. A major arpeggio is just the 1, the 3, and the 5, right? I'm going to turn on triads here. And I want to look at the thinnest, well, actually, let's turn off string 6. Look at the first 4 frets. You can see our A major shape here. I'm going to draw it, right? This drawing is not included in FretMonster. That's a separate plugin I'm using in my computer, right? When I play an A major chord, that's what I'm playing. It's those 3 notes on the 2nd fret plus the open 5th string and open 1st string. Now, if I was to play those same notes up on the neck somewhere, let me turn off strings 4 and 5. Check this out. I'm going to have these little 3-note clusters. And each of these clusters has a 1, a 3, and a 5. The order of the 1, 3s, and 5 will change, but you'll notice it repeats, right? Now, what I could do is play the A major chord like that, but I also could play right? Those are A major triads because they're all the same notes. And then maybe I want to look at strings 2, 3, and 4 instead. Well, I have, this is a triad, that's a triad, that's a triad, and that's a triad. So say I'm playing along with someone and they're just jamming on an A major chord, and during that part I want to sort of mess with different triads. I could do a triad here, I could do a triad here, I could do a triad here. I could go between the two, right? Okay, that's all me playing triads over the A major chord. You can do this for any key in FretMonster, right? You just want to look for the 1s and 3s and 5s. Now, if you're a pro, you can sort of go, let me go back to the key of A. You can sort of just turn on triads with a highlight and then use your sort of, you know, once you learn to recognize them, they're going to be in the same spots, no matter what the label is, no matter which strings are hidden, right? So I'm effectively circling the same things here. But say I want to get rid of some of the noise. What would I do? Well, I would probably turn on scale degrees. I prefer that. I would hide strings 5 and 6. I would hide strings 1. And then if I wanted to, I could change the scale, right? And it's going to sort of, it depends what I'm looking at here. I want to stay major, so I'm going to go to major arpeggio, and that's basically how I got to what I was just showing you there. So again, triads are a really fun thing that you can use for FretMonster as well. Let me show you a few other things real quick. These are all in my little handbook here again. So cage shapes are another thing that FretMonster is really good for. So in this example, I'm showing you a C major fretboard with the C major scale notes on it. Now, if you know what these cage shapes look like, you're going to be able to see them here. I would just recommend turning on triads so you can see those 1, 3s, and 5 notes, right, highlighted, and they're going to be the dead giveaways for where those cage shapes are. So if you want to practice going between different caged bar chords or triads or scales or anything else, so I do link out to a lot of caged examples in my FretMonster handbook. I just want to show you this example. And if you click these links in my PDF, it'll open each of these individual shapes in FretMonster so you can play around, right? But that's another thing you can do. So a couple more things I want to note really quick is you can change the instrument you're using in FretMonster. Say we're using drop D tuning or double drop D or open D or open E, or we have a cigar box guitar. I just added a bunch of banjo tunings, right? All of these will take FretMonster and change the number of strings and change the tuning, right? This is a bass, for example, right? We could do a banjo. For the banjo, I don't have that like a droning string that's on the bottom just because that's like a half-length string. What else do we have here? A ukulele. You get it. Basically, you can see that the strings still exist. You can click on the strings to hide them. You can use the keyboard shortcuts I have to hide them as well. And that's another thing you can do. Okay, so be sure to get the handbook that I have on this page. It's going to show you all this stuff. And the handbook's going to have a bunch of links, again, that will open FretMonster up in specific setups. So say you're looking at the setup I have here, right? This is a C major scale between fret 7 and 10. Say you're practicing this all the live long day. The cool part is, with the new updates I've added this month, is if you were to refresh the page, it keeps what you have. That's a new feature. For the last 10 years, if you were to refresh the page, it would always start over again, right? So now it will basically save the setup you have in the web address bar in your browser, right? The URL bar. And that means that you can bookmark things, right? It also means you can send links to yourself, send links to friends. I can send links to you in future lessons I do. And in my handbook, one thing you're gonna see is I have a bunch of examples of setups where I will write view in FretMonster in the PDF, and you click on that link, it's gonna open FretMonster in that exact setup. So that's a really big quality of life improvement, right? Another thing that's cool about FretMonster is it will work on a phone. It is what they call mobile friendly in the business. I professionally worked in web design and development for a long time, so I've coded lots of things. I built this tool from scratch. Now here it is. Let me show you this. Right, if I was to load it, I can basically. I'm looking at this backwards. It's mobile friendly, right? It's not going to show you the full fretboard in one view because that would not be really readable on a phone. But if you want to look at just one position or whatever, you can. So it works on your phone as well. That's something that I recommend. trying out. There's no actual app for FretMonster, but it's on the web and it's mobile friendly. So that means you can just open the web page and then go to your share screen on whatever phone you're using. On the iPhone, there's like add to home screen, right? Add shortcut to home screen. And on Android, I don't remember what it's called, but you can do that as well. I'm fairly certain. So that's one thing you want to keep in mind. But have some fun with this. Again, you can click the notes to hear things. If you're using your phone to do that, just make sure you're not muted on your phone. Like if you have your silent switch turned on, you won't hear anything. So make sure that bell is not crossed off on your iPhone or iPad. You can click the notes and hear them, and it's just a great way to sort of validate things that you're doing, that you're playing, that you want to play without having to always necessarily learn it fully first, okay? So I hope this is helpful for y'all. Again, get the handbook and check out my other tools really quick. I have tools like Keymaster. This is a way for you to pick a key and then, view the notes in that scale, right? And you can sort of click on the chords as well. You could play along with songs like that. I have a bunch of example progressions as well. If you want to sing like Brown Eyed Girl, hey, where did we go? Days when the rains came down in a hollow, playing a new game. And what's really cool is I have this exact thing set up for every key, or at least the 5 most common keys. I'd like to get to the other keys one day. It's just a lot of work to get to some of those edge cases. I just want to sort of show you the lay of the land for the most common keys here. So anyway, y'all, let me end this by showing FretMonster on the screen. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, let me know. Get that handbook, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.